Chapter 3, Part 2, Management, an Integrated Approach Ethics and Corporate Social Responsibility, the role of the individual in confronting moral dilemmas. While companies can develop policies and make statements about how they address, or should address, difficult environmental, consumer, and employee dilemmas, the actual decisions are made by individuals. Most people make the right decisions when confronted with common ethical challenges, though there are certain cases when a few individuals can go astray. These can be gray areas where there is limited information and lots of ambiguity, but these can also be clear-cut situations when an individual decides to follow a more precarious and potentially illegal path. Individuals often rationalize the decisions that they make using one of three common arguments, including the following. 1. Everyone is already doing it. What difference does it make if I go along as well? In essence, this argument tries to make the case that the questionable action is already standard practice in the organization, and in some cases, it might be what is expected of individuals. 2. The impact of this action is not that big of a deal. It is so small that it is immaterial and won't really hurt anyone. This argument can be a slippery slope. If one makes decisions based on this argument for small items, it can easily lead to larger and more complex issues. 3. I am just doing what I have been told. This argument deflects the accountability and blame to other parties, thus absolving the individual from any responsibility. While these arguments may make the individual feel better about his or her decision in the moment, they are quite dangerous and can easily lead one to make poor judgment calls with more severe issues. Some of these more severe ethical dilemmas involve conflicts of interest, insider trading, trade secrets, and bribery. Misguided incentives often play a role in leading individuals astray. Conflicts of interest. When employees or managers engage in activities on behalf of the company and have a personal interest in the outcome of those activities, they are engaging in a conflict of interest. It is a particular problem when their own interests oppose the company's interests or their judgment is biased against their duty to the company. 66. For example, if a manager's daughter-in-law is a salesperson for a firm that manufactures tools that the company needs, the manager may be motivated to give her company business instead of a more trusted and or less expensive source. 67. Other examples include situations where people exercise biased judgment, engage in direct competition with their employer, misuse their power, and violate confidentiality. Insider trading. Leaders often have access to proprietary information such as earnings forecasts, research experiments, or potential lawsuits. It can be very tempting to use this inside information for personal gain. If a manager uses inside information to bet for or against a company's stock before that information is publicly available, he or she is engaging in the illegal practice of insider trading. Unfortunately, the allure of a quick financial win can cloud one's judgment. In 2002, Steve Madden, founder of the women's shoe line, admitted to helping penny stock firms manipulate more than 20 initial public offerings, resulting in losses to investors that approached $100 million. As a result, Madden was sentenced to 41 months in prison and had to pay more than $4 million in fines and restitution. 69. Recently, SAC Capital agreed to a $1.2 billion fine to settle insider trading charges brought against them by the U.S. government. Though the firm's principal, Steve Cohen, has avoided prosecution, 8 of his former employees have been charged, and the firm has become a mere shadow of its former self. The most significant charges against the former employees involve the trading of stock from Dell and 2 drug companies, Ella and Wyeth. One trader gained access to information about Dell's third-quarter financial performance in 2008 before it was publicly available. The trader used this information to sell Sachs holdings in Dell and to bet against the stock before the earnings announcement was made public. This inside information allowed SAC to reap an enormous profit while avoiding a loss and holding on to Dell stock. The trader who used this inside information was sentenced to a 3-year prison term. Similarly, another trader used inside information he had learned about the potential underperformance of 2 Alzheimer drugs produced by Ella and Wyeth before it was publicly available to bet against the companies. By doing so, SAC avoided losses and yielded profits of $275 million, and the trader received a $9 million bonus. The trader who orchestrated this deal was eventually sentenced to 9 years in prison and was forced to repay his bonus. Trade secrets. Some of the most important assets of a company are its trade secrets. A trade secret is any type of information used in conducting business that is not commonly known by others. Trade secrets are especially valuable in research and development, R&D, as they often provide strategic advantage for a company over its competitors. 71. For example, Google's search algorithm is a heavily guarded trade secret. Trade secrets, along with patents, copyrights, and trademarks, are considered intellectual property, IP by law, which means that they are treated the same as tangible property. The owner has a right to sell, license, or assign ownership of a trade secret to others. 72. The owner of the IP is generally the company itself, not an individual employee. As such, individual employees should not reveal trade secrets without the express consent of the company. Doing so could result in legal action as well as undermine the competitive strength of the company. The pharmaceutical industry, in particular, relies heavily on IP law to protect its intellectual assets and to secure financial longevity. Due to years of R&D, regulation by the Food and Drug Administration, and clinical trials, pharmaceutical companies incur costs that are higher than those of almost any other industry. As a result, they go to extra lengths to ensure that laws protect IP. They not only lobby for longer patent protection domestically but also ask the U.S. government to protect their IP abroad by reducing pharmaceutical fraud in countries that have more lax IP laws. Bribery. Bribery is defined as offering something valuable to a party as an incentive to act on his or her behalf, often to an unfair advantage. Bribery is fundamentally about creating a breach of trust. While the oldest forms of bribery involve public officials, today it also manifests itself in private organizations. 74. The problems caused by bribery are numerous. Organizations can suffer negative economic consequences such as the diversion of resources to inefficient uses, higher costs of doing business, and loss of investor confidence. 75. In 2011, U.S. regulators accused IBM of a decade-long campaign of bribery in Asia, claiming that more than 100 employees handed over shopping bags of money to government officials in exchange for millions of dollars in contracts. To avoid litigation, IBM agreed to pay a $10 million settlement. 76 at the governmental level. Bribery undermines economic development because it decreases efficiency, breeds cynicism, and distorts international competition. 77 because the negative consequences of bribery are so high. Most countries condemn bribery and have adopted laws to prohibit it among public officials. 78 there are even international laws against it. Despite the domestic and international efforts, bribery remains a pervasive problem worldwide. In many cases, the financial penalties are not very severe. Consider IBM's case. The $10 million the company paid to avoid litigation represented only 0.06% of the company's net income in 2011. How does that compare to the additional business that IBM may have secured from the alleged bribery? In some cases, firms even conduct a cost-benefit analysis to determine the potential upsides and downsides of engaging in bribery. Transparency International, a non-governmental agency that combats corruption, publishes a Corruption Perceptions Index. According to the 2014 report, nearly 70% of 175 countries worldwide scored below F50 out of a best possible clean 100, signaling a high problem with corruption. See Table 3.2.79. Many of these countries host multinational corporations, and many U.S. managers must deal with local organizations to secure resources and sell goods. If you were a manager faced with intense pressure to meet financial goals, would you offer a bribe to secure a distribution channel? What if you were competing for a promotion and knew your colleagues would offer a bribe to get ahead of you? Whistleblowing. While employees have a moral obligation to stakeholders, they also have a duty to the business. In fact, their main duty is to work toward the goals of the firm and avoid activities that might harm those goals. But employees may at times egregiously violate moral standards, and others may need to step in and blow the whistle. Whistleblowing is the release of evidence by a member of an organization that proves illegal or immoral conduct to executives in a company or regulating agencies outside a company. 81 in 2002, Time magazine named 3 women, Sharon Watkins, Colleen Rowley, and Cynthia Cooper, as their persons of the year for blowing the whistle on their respective organizations. A vice president at Enron, Watkins, warned the chairman of Enron, Ken Lay, that the company was using improper accounting methods to inflate the value of its assets and earnings. Rowley, a staff attorney at the FBI, wrote a memo to the director, Robert Mueller, about how the bureau failed to act on information from the Minneapolis field office about Zacarias Moussaoui, who was later indicted as a co-conspirator in the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks. Finally, Cooper informed the board of WorldCom that the company had covered up $3.8 billion in losses through phony bookkeeping. All 3 were reluctant whistleblowers, and their names only became public through leaked memos at their organizations. 82 more recently, Sherry Hunt, a vice president and chief underwriter at Citi Mortgage, spoke up about the bank's mortgage fraud. Like many banks, Citi Mortgage got caught up in the freewheeling mortgage lending that contributed to the global financial crisis. To sustain growth, some members of the bank's underwriting department approved mortgages based on fabricated information, including inflating an applicant's annual income. After being unsuccessful in getting the attention of senior executives in the firm, Hunt reached out to the U.S. Department of Justice. Although whistleblowers are acting ethically, they usually pay a high price for their acts of dissent. They can be blacklisted, fired, threatened, and treated unfairly, and they often endure financial hardship. For instance, Hunt was threatened by 2 senior executives who demanded that she retract her memo about the fraud and that she change the results of her quality control reports. In addition, those who have blown the whistle have difficulty finding other jobs because they are seen as disloyal. What is interesting to note is that regardless of the consequences, many whistleblowers said that they couldn't live with themselves if they did nothing and would do the same if given the choice. Corporate social responsibility. Today there is increasing pressure on business organizations to fulfill broader goals, those that go beyond financial performance. While some managers face pressure from external organizations such as Human Rights Watch, the Animal Defense League, and the Environmental Protection Agency, they also feel pressure from their own employees to engage in CSR activities. 88 over the years, corporations have responded. Between 2011 and 2013, the Fortune Global 500 spent almost $20 billion on CSR. 3 companies, Oracle, AstraZeneca, and Halliburton, contributed over $1 billion each to CSR activities. CSR was first described in 1953 as business's obligation to pursue the policies, decisions, and actions that align with the objectives and values of society. 90. The basic assumption behind CSR is that business and society are intimately interwoven. Businesses rely on consumers to buy their products, and consumers rely on businesses to provide goods that will sustain their well-being. Like the government, business has a social contract with the public, an implied set of rights and obligations. While the specifics of the contract may change as society changes, the contract remains as a source of legitimacy for business. 92. In other words, if a company does not hold up its end of the bargain, society can take action against the firm. For example, consumers can choose not to purchase goods from a company they dislike, and talented employees can leave a company they do not respect. Economic, legal, and ethical responsibilities. Theorists have identified 3 core domains in which businesses have a responsibility: economic, legal, and ethical. Many believe that if businesses promote each of these domains, they will achieve a fair distribution of wealth to their stakeholders. While these 3 seem separate and unique, overlap is possible and business activities can support 1, 2, or all 3 domains. See Figure 3.2.93. Economic responsibilities refer to a business's duty to make a profit and increase shareholder value. Business institutions are the basic economic units in society. Therefore, they have a duty to produce goods and services that people want and to sell them at a profit. Most aspects of business are built on this fundamental assumption. 94 companies engage in a variety of activities to increase profits, both directly and indirectly. Direct activities can include decreasing production costs and improving efficiency. Indirect actions refer to the intangible things that, over time, improve economic performance. For instance, improving employee morale, increasing brand awareness among consumers, and fostering strong leadership throughout an organization. 95. The legal responsibilities to society are to obey the state and federal laws pertaining to business activity. Just as society allows business to assume the role role of producer, it also lays down the boundaries in which a business must operate. There are several ways in which a company can maintain this responsibility. The most common are complying with laws, anticipating future laws, and avoiding civil litigation. 96 For example, Toyota avoided heavy lawsuit costs by voluntarily recalling more than 5 million cars worldwide when it was reported that accelerators would stick to the floor of the car. 97 Generally, laws serve as the minimum standard that businesses should hold. See Figure 3.3. Recent scandals have forced lawmakers to raise the bar on business standards, evidenced by the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002. In response to Enron's accounting fraud, Congress passed this law to prohibit officers, directors, and others from influencing their financial auditors or altering financial statements. It also illegalized the destruction of any documents used to obstruct a federal investigation. 98 Again, in the aftermath of the global crisis of 2008, Congress passed a law in 2009 to increase the government's ability to regulate financial markets, reflecting renewed distrust in the American corporation. The law created a new council to detect risks in the financial system, created a new powerful regulator to protect consumers of financial products, and called for regulation of complex trading instruments called derivatives. 99 Beyond the economic and legal responsibilities, businesses have ethical responsibilities to society. These can be defined as the expected behaviors of the general population. Although ethical responsibilities are difficult to define, managers can use the ethical frameworks discussed earlier in this chapter to understand how to make ethical decisions based on their stakeholders' expectations. For example, it is no longer good enough just to practice fair hiring and provide a safe work environment. Today's ethical climate calls for businesses to address issues of sustainability and pollution. Ritz Camera, a leading retail camera and photo company, recently launched its Call to Recycle campaign. As part of this initiative, Ritz offers its customers a free and easy way to properly dispose of their used rechargeable batteries. This program is based on the idea that recycling improves sustainability and reduces waste. 100. Corporate social responsiveness. Many researchers have looked beyond the scope of the economic, legal, and ethical framework for ways that companies can practice CSR. One of the main questions these researchers explore deals with accountability. How do businesses create programs and policies to produce good outcomes for society? Corporate social responsiveness refers to how businesses should respond when society pressures them to do more. 102. When BP caused the 2010 oil crisis in the Gulf of Mexico, it responded to public criticism by setting up a relief fund worth $20 billion to compensate those affected by the spill. 103. When responding to these pressures, managers have numerous tools at their disposal. They can react, accommodate, defend, lead, use public relations, use law, bargain, or problem solve. Responsive firms are characterized by 3 behaviors. 1. They monitor and assess environmental conditions on a constant basis. 2. They seek to identify the needs of their stakeholders. And 3. They design plans and policies to respond to the changing conditions. 104. In the next section, we show how these responsive CSR behaviors can be incorporated into a firm's strategy and become a potential source for competitive advantage. Is corporate social responsibility good for business? Some observers believe that CSR not only detracts from financial performance, but also undermines the purpose of business in a capitalistic society. None were more vocal about this perspective than Milton Friedman, who in 1970 claimed that the only social responsibility of business is to increase its profits. He believed that, while social welfare is important, it should be left to the government. The best thing businesses can do is maximize their profit within the limits of the law. Anything else would undermine society, moving it from capitalism to socialism. 105. Dozens of research studies have supported Friedman's view, showing that CSR activity negatively affects economic performance. Using numerous financial indicators such as profit, return on investment, or stock price and CSR indices to reflect CSR activity, these researchers argue that higher CSR activity causes lower financial performance in the future. 106. They reason that CSR involves definite costs that fall on the bottom line, but only uncertain gains that may never reach the bottom line. 107. More recently, other studies have refuted these claims, finding a positive or neutral effect on financial performance with similar criteria. 108. These researchers argue that CSR should be viewed as an investment that will lead to improved efficiency, innovation, and long-term financial success. 109. One individual who has tried to reconcile corporate philanthropy and financial performance is Tony Hsieh, founder of the online shoe retailer, Zappos. In 2011, Hsieh committed to investing $350 million to revitalize the neglected and abandoned downtown area of Las Vegas. He moved Zappos offices from the suburbs of Las Vegas into the old City Hall, and bought 60 acres and 100 buildings in the downtown area. Over the next few years, he invested in new local businesses and built new apartment complexes. He personally relocated to one of the new apartments and convinced many other employees to leave their gated communities for the downtown Las Vegas district. In addition, Hsieh has funded a number of startup tech firms that are also located in the downtown area. These firms' employees, in turn, need local restaurants, grocery stores, and entertainment venues, all of which contribute to the creation of a vibrant, renewed city center. Hsieh believes that these investments will result in a significant financial return as well as what he calls a return on the community. 110. Though not universally accepted, a positive link between CSR and profit has become more commonly acknowledged, which has significantly strengthened its business case. 111. Consumers are a major source for this phenomenon. They not only have a favorable attitude toward companies engaging in CSR, but also make purchasing decisions based on CSR activity. 112. For instance, a recent Nielsen survey found that 55% of global online consumers are willing to pay more for products and services from companies that are socially and environmentally responsible. 113. Other benefits for companies come in the form of making tax deductions, attracting talented employees, avoiding litigation, and saving costs. 114. For example, firms such as Arco and Procter & Gamble generally credit part of their profits and reputation to pro-environment corporate behavior. CSR is a competitive advantage. While a healthy society needs successful businesses need a healthy society to sustain increasing demand. 116. Practicing CSR can be a source of opportunity, innovation, and competitive advantage. It can be an investment in the company's future. 117. As a result, companies must treat CSR the same way they treat their strategy. They must plan, implement, and evaluate CSR goals. 118. In 2010, Ron Shaich, founder of Panera Bread, reevaluated his firm's philanthropic activities. Even though the company was giving more than $100 million a year in cash and products to various communities, Shaich felt that the efforts were too diffused and disconnected. After learning about a Pay What You Can cafe in Denver, Shaich decided to start Panera Cares, a full-scale Panera Bakery cafe. Panera Cares is essentially identical to the traditional Panera establishment, except that they are based in communities that are economically troubled where individuals who need a meal can gain access to one. With no listed prices and no cash registers, Panera Cares operates on a donation basis, asking patrons to pay what they can. To be self-sustaining, the company has been careful to choose locations that offer access to a diversity of customers, some who can make larger donations than others. 119 as of 2014. The company served over 1 million people each year at their Panera Cares locations, and the company brought in about 75% of what they would have earned with a traditional outlet. Supporting core business activities. CSR is strategic when it supports core business activities that contribute to the firm's mission, vision, and strategy. 121. One of the most important areas is the labor force. Attracting and retaining employees who are skilled, creative, and driven is essential for satisfying customers and differentiating a company from its competitors. 122. Previously, firms succeeded by emphasizing process technology, access to financial markets, patents, and industry attractiveness. While these sources of competitive advantage are still important, recruitment of top candidates is becoming even more important. 123. In an effort to be the nation's first zero landfill car factory, Subaru of Indiana Automotive launched an employee incentive program whereby workers, who make suggestions for reducing packaging and identifying process reductions in the assembly line, are eligible for bonuses including a new Subaru Legacy. The program has resulted in significant cost savings that are reinvested in the business while also increasing the profile of the company as an attractive and sought-after employer. 124. Mark Benioff, founder of Salesforce.com, a technology that enables companies to keep track of their customers, has embraced CSR as a strategic initiative since he founded the company in 1999. At the time, he introduced the 1 and 1/1 model of corporate philanthropy, whereby the company would send 1% of its stock, products, and employees' work hours to the company foundation. The company foundation supports a number of civic initiatives, including healthcare, education, and affordable housing around San Francisco where Salesforce is headquartered. Benioff believes that his company is a much more attractive place of employment based on their CSR approach, which is a distinct competitive advantage in an environment, Silicon Valley, that needs lots of technological talent. The influx of technological talent and the growth of the tech sector in San Francisco have resulted in a decline in affordable housing and the gentrification of many parts of the city. Benioff realizes that his company has contributed to this situation, and he wants to be a part of the solution. To that end, he has been active in convincing other technology companies in the area to increase their civic mindedness and to make investments in new affordable housing, as well as other programs. 125. Research shows that companies with higher CSR activity, like Salesforce.com, are seen as more attractive places to work, which means that talented employees are more willing to pursue these employers and are more willing to stay with them over time. 126. By attracting a higher quality workforce, firms can develop a competitive advantage. Employees participating in CSR activities tend to have a better self-image, which in turn improves their morale and increases company profitability. 127. For example, Home Depot allows its employees to take company time to participate in volunteer organizations around the community. By doing so, employees are happier and often acquire new skills that help them in their jobs. 128. Beyond human relations, companies can use CSR to improve the quality of the business environment in which they operate. By investing in education, pollution reduction, and economic development in emerging markets, for instance, companies can improve their productivity and generate new business opportunities while promoting social welfare. For example, Cisco created an educational program called the Cisco Networking Academy to train computer network administrators. This program not only provided attractive job opportunities for high school graduates, but also secured long-term growth opportunities by educating net administrators who would later need Cisco's products to perform their job. In another case, ExxonMobil has devoted substantial resources to improving basic infrastructure such as roads and the rule of law in the developing countries where they operate. By doing so, the company is improving both its business operations and consumer demand in developing regions of the world. 129. Creating a strategic CSR platform. CSR can be difficult to implement, especially when a company is engaging in CSR activities for the first time. Companies should strive to engage in strategic CSR, where they identify CSR initiatives that are directly related to their business activities so that they can combine social welfare with financial welfare. The following 4-step process is a useful tool for managers engaged in this effort. See Figure 3.4. First, companies should identify the inside-out linkages as well as the outside-in linkages. The inside-out linkages consist of all of the activities in a firm's value chain that impact society, including the firm's hiring and layoff policies, greenhouse gas emissions, and supply chain practices. 130. Outside-in linkages consist of social dimensions that can affect a firm's ability to improve productivity and execute strategy. Examples include industry regulations, access to natural resources, availability of human resources, and competitive rivalry. When a company is choosing what social issues to address, the essential guideline for CSR is not whether a cause is worthy, but whether there is an opportunity to generate a benefit for society while also benefiting the business. Companies should refrain from supporting generic issues, which have no connection to a business's activity. Instead, they should support issues that are directly related to their value chain, or they should support issues that can change the competitive context of their business. For example, supporting a local dance company is a generic issue for a utilities company, such as Southern California Edison, but that same dance company may influence the competitive context for a company such as American Express, which depends on high-end entertainment and tourism for business. 131. After choosing specific issues, companies should create a corporate social agenda that supports both inside-out and outside-in dimensions. Whole Foods' business model is built around the notion that people will pay a premium for food that is healthy, tasty, and environmentally friendly. Whole Foods uses its buying power to change modern factory farming so that animals are treated humanely before slaughter. The company also owns and operates its own seafood processing plants to ensure that its sourcing tactics do not affect other marine life. In January 2006, The company also made the largest ever purchase of renewable energy credits from wind farms, which was enough to cover all of the company's electric energy consumption. 132 Finally, companies should use their social agenda to add a social dimension to their value proposition, which is the unique set of needs a firm can meet for its customers. By adding a social dimension to this value proposition, a firm can show that making a social impact is integral to the overall strategy. For example, Whole Foods' value proposition is to sell organic, natural, and healthy food to customers who are passionate about food and care about the environment. This emphasis has enabled the company to command premium prices for its products. 133 Not all companies can benefit in the same way as Whole Foods, where customers are willing to pay extra for the firm's CSR activity. As a company considers its various strategic alternatives, one potential avenue can be CSR, but it should be evaluated in light of the industry context and competitive landscape. Summary. Low 1. These ethical frameworks can provide guidance when the interests of a company conflict with the interests of society. How does a manager decide what trade-offs are most important and relevant? A manager's personal moral philosophy and understanding of what is right and wrong often play an important role in confronting ethical dilemmas. Some individuals, who take a utilitarian approach, believe that morality is derived from making decisions that produce the greatest good for the greatest number of people. Other individuals believe that morality is derived by motives and moral obligations. They believe that individuals must make the right decisions for the right reasons. Still others base moral decisions on their conception of justice. Low 2. Organizations have long been confronted by common moral dilemmas in their relationship to the environment, consumers, and employees. As the business landscape evolves, organizations will need to constantly reassess their relationship to these constituents to ensure that they are properly addressing them. Ultimately, individuals make decisions, and some of the difficult dilemmas faced by individuals involve conflicts of interests, insider trading, trade secrets, and bribery. When businesses or individuals fail to navigate these dilemmas in an appropriate and ethical way, they can be susceptible to whistleblowing, then lawsuits. Low 3. CSR is an application of ethics in business, whereby businesses are expected to engage in socially responsible behavior. A firm has economic, legal, and ethical responsibilities to shareholders, customers, employees, and the public. Therefore, firms must balance competing interests and priorities to remain competitive. This is part of the stakeholder view of management. Low 4. The link between CSR and financial performance of a firm is not always clear. What is clear is that CSR should not be pursued in a vacuum. CSR can be a competitive advantage if it is linked with a firm's strategy and business activities. Being socially responsible in a strategic sense allows firms to apply considerable resources, expertise, and insight to activities that benefit society and that have economic impact. Key terms: conflict of interest, corporate social responsibility, CSR, corporate social responsiveness, distributive justice, economic responsibilities, ethical responsibilities, ethics, fiduciary, insider trading, justice, Kantianism, legal responsibilities, morality, privacy, procedural justice, strategic CSR, trade secret, utilitarianism, virtue ethics, whistleblowing, ethics, the study of moral standards and their effect on behavior and conduct, morality, the standards that people use to judge what is right or wrong, good or evil, utilitarianism, the ethical philosophy claiming that behaviors are considered moral if they produce the greatest good or utility for the greatest number of people, Kantianism, an ethical philosophy claiming that motives and universal rules are important aspects in judging what is right or wrong, virtue ethics, an ethical philosophy claiming that morality's primary function is to develop virtuous character, justice, an ethical philosophy that provides the framework for society to judge what is morally right or wrong, fair or unfair, and establishes ways to evaluate or punish those who behave in immoral ways, distributive justice, a subset of justice that deals with the distribution of wealth among members of a society, procedural justice, a subset of justice claiming that rules should be clearly stated, consistently obeyed, and impartially enforced, fiduciary, a person who is entrusted with property, information, or power to act on behalf of a beneficiary, privacy, a person's right to determine the type and extent of information that is disclosed about him or her, conflict of interest, conflicts that occur when employees or managers engage in activities on behalf of the company and have a personal interest in the outcome of those activities, insider trading, insider trading occurs when a manager uses inside information to bet for or against a company's stock before that information is publicly available, trade secret, any type of information used in conducting business that is not commonly known by others. It often provides a strategic advantage for a company over its competitors. Whistleblowing, the release of evidence by a member of an organization that proves illegal or immoral conduct to executives in a company or regulating agencies outside a company. CSR, a business's obligation to pursue policies, decisions, and actions that align with the objectives and values of society. Economic responsibilities, a business's duty to make a profit and increase shareholder value. Legal responsibilities, a business's duty to pursue its economic responsibilities within the boundaries of the law. Ethical responsibilities, a business's duty to meet the expectations of society beyond its economic and legal responsibilities. Corporate social responsiveness, the practice of businesses responding to pressure from society to engage in socially responsible ways. Strategic CSR, corporate social responsibility activities that are directly related to business activities so that they can combine social welfare with financial welfare.